All right, I don't know if someone did this yet, but a big thank you to Anna and the OAAA for this conference. It is the one time per year we get to all be together.
What are you guys doing?
Pick a seat.
Musical chairs.
Musical
Didn't sit
chairs.
in order.
Any
was
order.
it? Alphabetical order.
All right.
I
Well,
wanted to thank
Yeah.
Anna and the OAAA for booking Michael Casson to be our warm-up guy. He's a great opening act. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm so excited about this panel. This is a topic that I feel really passionately about. Personally, I am influenced every day. Actually, one of my favorite creators is on stage with us here.
It's
Boy,
me.
we know
It's
job.
me.
I get to fangirl up here. And professionally, I think there's so much room for us in out of home to learn from what goes on in this space and to integrate it into our own media. So, no better people to learn from. I have so many questions. I'm sure you all do. I hope I represent them here on stage. Let's do it. Okay, the first one. All of you in some way or another took a bet on the creator economy and carved out a niche where no one else had before. What inspired each of you to pivot from more traditional backgrounds into the creator economy? And for this one, I'm going to ask to start with Eric, given that you are working at a financial company. You started a financial company, and there is nothing more synonymous with the word traditional than financial. So tell us how we got here.
Yeah, thank you. So as she mentioned, my name's Eric. I'm co-founder and co-CEO of Karat Financial. And we help YouTubers and influencers with credit cards, bank accounts, taxes. Because you could have 1 million followers on YouTube and still not even qualify for a credit card, which is absolutely insane. We've been around for 5 years. We work with a lot of your favorite YouTubers. We've raised for $100 million to do so. Now, before Karat, I did 2 really different things. The first thing was I started off on Wall Street in investment banking and in management consulting. And the second thing, I worked at Instagram. And it's at Instagram, I'm working with some of the fastest growing and biggest influencers in the world. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a real business. Growing up, that thing you like to do for fun that your parents always said, this is cute, but get a real job. There are people who are now doing that and making real jobs out of it. And they have so much reach and influence, and they have no idea what to do from a financial perspective. So we started off by building a credit card that provided them with terms based off their social and financial stats instead of their credit history. Probably one of the reasons I'm up here today, which I'll share a little bit more, in terms of how we grew with this segment of very influential creators, out of home was an important and key part of it. I don't know if I share details now, or shall we continue on?
Let's come back to it.
Sounds good.
Let's continue on.
I'll zip up.
No, we're going to talk a lot about out of home.
Okay, so what really, I've been covering the industry of, we call it the creator economy. It's the business of influencers and creators on online video. Since 2007, we started Tubefilter. It's a media publication. We have an award show called the Streamy Awards. We've been focusing on what really drew my attention to this is that we noticed 15 years ago that there's these unique voices, unique faces in online video where there was not in traditional media. And I think that's what still continues today is that, it's all about storytelling and how you capture attention. And the people we work with in the creator economy are total experts in grabbing attention quickly. And I think there's a lot of relations to how we do that in outdoor as well.
We were just talking about that backstage, about how celebrity today is like a real person. It is not an actor necessarily or an actress who has a handler. It's Ben.
Thanks.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to stop fangirling. It's over. All right.
I'm sorry, the question was, how did we get into the creator space?
Yeah, and why?
Yeah, I actually used to work at a beverage company called Hintwater. And when I was there, I found that one of the best forms of advertising was actually creating content with media publishers, companies like BuzzFeed, Refinery, Pop Sugar. And then, of course, the world shifted to video. And I thought, what is the equivalent of that for video? How do we get other, third parties to talk about our product and induce trust and all of the things that come with that? And it ended up being creators. And we found that there was a great return with creators. And so even today, majority of my business, a lot of our clients are celebrities and creators and influencers who have brands.
Cool. Ben Soffer, founder and CEO of Spritz Society. Prior to founding Spritz Society, I ran celebrity and influencer marketing agencies such as VaynerMedia, Horizon Media. And somewhere along the way, I built a now ironic alias Boy With No Job on Instagram, where I have almost 1.5 million followers. So I think that the idea of when did I enter the creator economy, one could say that it was when I launched that Instagram account, but truly, I didn't enter the creator economy until I realized what I could do with my social platform, the way that people are using creators to launch brands, what Nick does on a daily basis. When I had this concept of, okay, if I'm paying creators on behalf of larger brands, why don't I build a brand myself? And that was Spritz Society. The idea was, could we crowdsource innovation through our communities and use the audience that we've built to actually inform real decision making and launch a beverage company in a very saturated space that is something that's actually missing. So we make wine-based sparkling cocktails. All the rise in the RTD space is malt-based or vodka-based with your high noons. And
For sure.
we speak to a millennial female consumer, so the idea is they like Pinot Grigio and Sauvignon Blanc, so why couldn't we make wine-based sparkling cocktails that tasted good? And that was a direct sort of response from our audience saying, look, this is missing. So really entered the creator economy when we decided to use our platforms to launch businesses.
Wait, spritzes are just for women?
No. But like all smart brands, they start with women because men don't like taking chances.
Yeah.
Men are very, very stuck in their ways. Until it's in their fridge because their wife or girlfriend brought it home, they're not going to buy it first. White Claw was 95% female the first 2 years, and now it's 50-50. So women buy, men trail. That's the idea.
Oh, I love that. I'll steal that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about out-of-home. We're all here. This is an out-of-home conference, and we feel obviously that it's naturally the next space in which to grow and extend the creator economy. So what do you think the biggest opportunity is for creators in extending from that device to the street?
I'll go. So we take an approach where we bring on brand ambassadors that really have a localized focus. So some could call them micro-influencers. I just call them regional influencers. For example, we just signed Craig Conover from Southern Charm to be our brand ambassador. He lives in South Carolina. He has a Bravo show all about South Carolina. And the idea was we're going to launch the South Carolina market, and we're going to use the #1 face in South Carolina. And I think the exact same thing can be applied to out-of-home. How do you take that really, really focused reach and take that face that means so much to somebody regionally, might mean less to somebody nationally, and really use that to propel growth and drive trial? If you see Craig's face in South Carolina with a Spritz can, you're going to try it because you trust him in that market. So I think that leveraging micro-influencers, even smaller than Craig, that person with 15, 20,000 followers that you don't have to pay too much to, that really has pull within a couple of zip codes, is a really, really interesting way to drive a stronger relationship as opposed to using a model.
I think one of the biggest opportunities for digital creators with out-of-home, or we like to call it out-of-phone, is serendipity, right? So much of the premise and thesis of digital advertising and sort of the value proposition is targeting. Targeting. You know, we know everything about you from your Facebook account. We know how to target exactly and precisely. We do that in politics. We do that in consumer advertising. But what out-of-home presents as an opportunity for creators is serendipity. You can't control for those people who pass by your inventory, right? And in that sort of blunt level advertising has value because you can discover new audiences that way. It's not about just converting the audiences you know and pushing them into action. It's also about exposure to new audiences and finding serendipitous moments where you're passing by or you're filling up your gas or whatever, and you're discovering right then and there. Discovery is such a huge part about advertising that's often overlooked in digital, and that's where I see a huge opportunity for our world to take advantage of out-of-home.
Today, anybody can record a video, post it online, reach millions of followers. That's brilliant, that's exciting. It's why there's a creator economy, and it also doesn't really feel special anymore. You could have millions of followers and nobody knows who you are. And so what out-of-home carries is prestige. It's so much harder to get your face on a billboard in Times Square than it is to get a video on your feed. And so if you're a brand thinking about working with creators through out of home, what we learned was, well, let's run billboards where we feature them. It's the best possible campaign because they're so excited to go and capture digitally this out of home placement that we ended up getting millions of impressions at very low cost. Ironically, for us, the way we saw billboards were they carry so much prestige, but of course, it usually was restricted to having to be there in person to see it. Well, if you have a creator and they take a photo or video of the billboard, now you have a way for them to convey that prestige through the means they know best, and you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's like being on the cover of a magazine.
Yeah, it's still cool.
It's cachet.
I love that. And speaking from experience, Brian from Quan Media, who I think is here, will occasionally give me the free billboard because he's the best. And in turn, I will post that billboard to my 1.5 million followers, tag Brian, tag Quan, and all of a sudden everybody saw that. So
Yeah, it's huge. Large format.
It's huge. And it's very, very exciting. And when people see that moment out in the wild, they're like, to your point, oh my God, he must be doing really well because he has a billboard campaign, and they don't know that it's regional. Right. They think that when you buy out of home, you're buying nationally. And it's like, no, I have one singular billboard in Boston. But it does add to cachet.
It gives that same effect of when everybody was saying Kanye bought a Super Bowl ad for $7 million, but he really just bought remnant local media and then talked about it as if he bought a Super Bowl ad. And the other thing too with out of home
That's right.
the other thing is like, you know, if one of our celebrity clients gets a billboard in LA, not only do they post it, but all of their friends of influence will also post it.
Yeah.
And it creates this, like everybody has said,
It's a shiny object too. I mean, it begets
millions of
more.
impressions.
Well, it's just like, oh, well, you got on a billboard. Where's my? Like, there was a time when YouTube used to put creators that they were working with on billboards, and it was like, they would come in, like creators would come in to negotiations. First thing, it's not how much money they're making or how much work they had to do. It's like, where's my billboard gonna be? They really love that. I mean, I think that's a huge opportunity to understand like the cachet of, and I don't just mean billboards. I mean just out of home in general, like being out there and being. Another thing is that, sorry, are we going off tangent?
No, you're all good.
Is that it's real. That's like so important. It's real, right? It can be documented, you can feel it. It's not a spreadsheet, it's not a report or a screenshot even. There's something great about the tangibility of out of home where you can point to it, you can capture it, you can feel it, you can see that's being delivered, right? Those are some of the issues that we have to contend with in terms of, you know, there's a lot of numbers floating around. A zero goes here or there. People are pushing and exaggerating. It's much harder to do that when something's real.
It's also great for those macro influencers because people care far less about conversions when it relates to macros. Macros are those billboards for social. When you start to deal with these smaller creators and these companies that are dying for direct-to-consumer conversions, when really nobody wants to check out in that fashion, they want to see something, they want to go into a store and they want to buy it on their own time. It is the natural crossover between if you're willing to pay a creator $500,000 for reach, then certainly using their face and out of home and having the same expectations of it is just reach, I think creates a very realistic outcome for the campaign.
I love seeing when celebrities post their social media moment on social media when they post their out-of-home moments. It's like that ultimate, hey, look, I made it. They're so used to seeing themselves on covers of magazines, on movies, on TV screens, on phones, but yet it's that out-of-home moment that they always post to social media. There's something very special about seeing yourself on that screen. All right, when we think about creators and brands being thoughtful about how they're showing up in real life, how do you feel digital-first creative transfers to public space, and what challenges might they face when using the screens?
I feel like generally creators are significantly better at most media companies than adapting to the formats that their content is being put out in. If you look at, I think YouTubers do it best. Like they have dominated YouTube, long form. They've dominated the social platforms. Every YouTuber's social stats are significantly higher engagement than any other type of creator across any platform. And then when you transfer that to out-of-home moments, whether it's a billboard, whether it's a poster behind a plane, whether it's a bus stop, a taxi top, they do the same thing. Like they just exercise their creative brain. And I think it's also very obvious when a creator is involved in their creative versus when they're not.
100%.
There's just an agency doing it. I mean, I think if you look at the difference between even some of the creative between like Mr. Beast Feastables and a generic, or maybe not generic, but like a more mass-produced creator brand where that person is clearly not involved in the day-to-day decisions, or even look at Skims versus the Skims competitor that has a celebrity face that's not really that involved.
Right.
You can see the difference. Obviously, part of it's because Brian Rappaport is just a beast.
All
But
roads lead back
you
to
can
Brian
see
Rappaport,
I know.
the
apparently.
difference between creators who are involved in their creative and those who are not.
Brian is not paying us, by the way.
But you know, like these, you have to understand that the creators that have arisen, they're experts at grabbing attention in a very busy environment very quickly, often without sound, because oftentimes you're scrolling and muted. They're leveraging text. They're leveraging, you know, the amount of, talking about Mr. Beast, the amount of energy that is invested in thumbnail and titling is extraordinary. You'd be surprised how obsessive creators are about that. If you're ever working with a creator, we recommend, you know, giving them a lot of liberty to kind of their creative energy and input is really a level of expertise that I think is unparalleled, the way that they capture attention. Because if you think about, they're competing with so much noise. It's really not a captive audience in any means. So they have to grab attention, and there's a lot that I think that can be learned from how they formulate thumbnails and how they, you know, the first few seconds of content, which is usually what's going to be showing up at a gas station or, you know, or a static image on a bus or a dynamic image. There's a lot, I think, that can be unpacked there.
Eric, I'm really curious. Your co-founder, we read a quote from him that I loved. It said, "Today creators are becoming businesses, and tomorrow what we're going to see is that all businesses are going to become creators." Can you talk a little bit about that?
The way you sell something is by reaching them. And once upon a time, hey, print ads, eventually radio, television, the internet. The way you reach people today, it's through the algorithm. If you create genuinely compelling content, you're going to be driving sales. And we've talked a lot about working with creators. If you're a brand and you want to build trust, find a creator, let them have free reign to show people what you're about and what they're about. I'm seeing more and more the next generation of entrepreneurs, like that Gen Z 20-year-old who's starting like a drinks and seltzer brand. I know a guy who's spun up from zero to millions in revenue through a podcast. He doesn't run ads. He's grown a podcast on YouTube that's become so big, people don't realize it's just the branded advertising arm of a seltzer company. They think the seltzer is just a brand deal for the podcast. And that's really cool.
That's like a soap opera.
Yeah,
like that's how soap opera started.
Yeah, exactly. Soap operas were produced by companies trying to advertise their products as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited. I think the next generation of companies building awareness from the start are going to be people who know how to make content and will do that from day one to advertise their brands.
I'll say with clients that, or brands that come to us that want to work with us, if it's a creator brand and we see that that creator is not actively working and constantly creating content, it's going to flop. It's not going to work. Absolutely not going to work.
It's a good segue into a question I have for Ben. So you established yourself as a creator and you built this really strong following before pivoting your strategy and building a brand of your own. So how much would you say your background in creating Boy With No Job really propelled your success with Spritz Society?
Everything. I don't even know where I would have started if I didn't have community. There's so much when you're launching a business, and to think about trying to launch one without a base of people that I can not only crowdsource innovation from, but then sell it to, it seems like an impossible feat, or the feat is raising $100 million and spending it appropriately. But this idea of really leaning into the organic following that we have and selling to them, not using paid ads. Like I think we spent, I don't know, $15,000 on paid last year. Wow. Year one, we spent $350,000. And we burned double the money and realized that it didn't lead to any more sales, because we have such a captive audience, and doing these partnerships with influencers to reach their captive audience is a far better way for us to spend money than on traditional paid ads online. So I think that ultimately without community, we would be lost. And I think that out of home is a really, really great place to extend that organic reach into the real world. Using paid ads to drive more earned just doesn't make any sense. Like the second a paid ad pops up, you know it's paid. when you see something out in the wild, you just have a different relationship with it.
I was going to say there's plenty of people in this room who'd love to sell you some ads. I promise you they'll be effective.
Online, I
follow
won't.
up with some out-of-home ads.
I was going to say, online, I won't believe that they're effective. In the wild, I will believe that they're effective. There's something about the platforms right now that I just can't trust that my impressions are going to the place that they say they're going to.
And that's what I exactly think the future is going to be. Ben is an influencer, but he might not fit your traditional conception of like a YouTuber who has no idea what he's doing. He's clearly a businessman, an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's been very savvy about how he uses content to grow organically. Like, I think that's tremendous.
Thank you.
So what advice would you give to those of us here in the out-of-home industry? What's the best way for our space to find synergies with the growing creator economy? And obviously we've talked a lot about this, but what's your last piece, words of wisdom that we all can share with this room?
Never use a model again. Like, never ever hire a model. Why? Influencers are beautiful. Like, they have reach and they look good, right? So put them in an ad, get the micro creator that has 10, 15,000 followers. Even just that person gave you added value that you didn't get from a traditional model that you're hiring and paying so much more money towards. So I would throw exclusively creators in all of my ads, no matter how big they are, because the value is there and it's not there when you use an agency to hire models.
That's a good one. I would say, if you're working with creator brands or creator-led brands, work with the creator on the creative. Don't just pass it off to another agency or just take what does well on Facebook and repurpose it for a billboard. You'd never take your best performing Snapchat ad and run that on TV or run it in a gas station. And so you've got to obviously just fit the creative to the context of the medium, which is out of home.
I think the most important thing is to understand your value that you're bringing to the table, because I don't think it's might be as obvious. Out of home is rare, it's scarce, and it's special. And that has cachet and value to the creator industry. They bring reach, but in terms of their creative input, like we're saying, that's what they do. What they get paid for is promotion and that sort of expressive outward reach. But you'd be surprised how easy it might be to work with a creator because of the exciting value of being out there and up there. We do an award show. It's called the Streamy Awards. Creators, normally you have to pay for them to fly and do all this, but they want to be part of something that's fun and special that makes them feel unique. And it's a value that they appreciate that they can't get anywhere else, even if they reach hundreds of millions of people. They want to be out there in the real world too. And you have that, and that's very valuable.
Consider how your out-of-home strategy also leads into digital. Once upon a time, your value was from people walking in the street in the physical world and seeing what you've put out. That's not true anymore, because anything that you've put out in the real world is now captured and shared digitally, which means you now get to think about how you can drive value from your out-of-home into digital, but also consider brand new formats. Hey, if what drives so much reach is the fact that someone's going to take digital media of your out-of-home moment and share it, maybe you can do crazy, wacky things in that out-of-home context that you might not have been able to do before, because you're not going to have to keep it running 24/7. You just need to run it for the 15 minutes that the creator's going to be there and making media out of that moment. It's sort of allow you, all of you, to expand what you can offer. And if any of you want to talk more about this, I mean, you're in social media. I got to plug myself. You can find me at Karat, Trykarat. I feel like, can't let it go without a moment like that, because that's the world we live in.
That is the world we live in. Well, I feel very inspired.
I feel like we got to get your answer to this question too. As the CMO of Intersection.
Look, we have spent so much time at Intersection thinking about out-of-home and how we play in the creator economy. We just launched a new network called InterZ, which are all of our screens targeting Gen Z with special content that we have created to speak to that audience. There's so much more for us to do, and hopefully with all four of you, I'm so grateful that you all joined us today. Thank you so much, Ben and Nick and Drew and Eric and the OAAA for putting this together.
Thank you.
Thank you.